A freezing winter night in Chicago, as snow fell silently, blanketing the wealthiest streets of the city in white, a man who seemed to have everything came to a halt because of a minimal sentence. A little girl, about 5 years old, her hands trembling from the cold, gently tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "Sir, my mom didn't wake up." Just 6 words, but enough to make time stand still. That man did not know that if he turned away at that very moment, a life might be lost in the snowy night. And he could never have imagined that this very moment would completely change the way he understood wealth, success, and the true meaning of a life. That man's name was Michael Carter, 41 years old, the CEO of a major real estate corporation in Chicago. His life was measured in numbers: towering high-rise buildings, multi-million-dollar contracts, meetings that stretched late into the night. In the eyes of others, Michael was the very image of success: an expensive coat, a luxury car always waiting, and an assistant constantly on standby at the other end of the line. But as he stood alone on a snow-covered sidewalk beneath the cold yellow glow of the city lights, he suddenly realized a truth he had long tried to avoid. There was no one waiting for him at home. Michael's penthouse high above the city was spacious, flawless in every detail, yet silent. A silence that had lasted year after year, ever since the day his family fell apart, and he chose to bury himself in work so he wouldn't have to feel the emptiness. He had built an entire empire, but in doing so, he had also unknowingly built cold walls around his own heart. And at that very moment, when Michael bent down to look at the unfamiliar little girl in the snowy night, he had no idea that a small crack had appeared in that wall. A crack that would change his life in a way that no business deal had ever. Michael knelt, bringing himself to the little girl's eye level. The freezing snow seeped through the knees of his expensive dress pants, but he didn't notice at all. "Are you lost?" he asked, his voice slowing, softening more than he himself expected. The girl shook her head. Her small lips trembled as she tried to hold back the fear welling up in her large brown eyes. My mom didn't open her eyes." She spoke very quietly, as if afraid that saying it any louder would make that terrible thing become an irreversible truth. Michael froze. In the thousands of tense negotiations he had been through, no sentence had ever left him as disoriented as this one. "Can you tell me exactly what happened?" he asked, for the first time in many years, not as a CEO, but as a human being who was truly listening. "I shook her. I called her. She's lying on the floor next to the sofa. I brought water, but she still didn't wake up." A tear fell onto the girl's woolen glove. "I'm really scared," she whispered. "But my mom said, if something bad happens, go find an adult." And so, in the middle of a Chicago winter night, a 5-year-old child put on her coat, slung on her small backpack, and stepped out into the street to look for life for her mother. Michael felt his throat tighten. He had seen many adults who were afraid, who avoided, who hesitated, but standing in front of him now was a child who did not run away. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily." Michael nodded, took a deep breath, and held out his hand. "All right, Lily," he said slowly, firmly. "Now you lead me to your home. We're going to help your mom, okay?" Lily hesitated for a second. Then she placed her small, ice-cold hand into his. In that moment, Michael did not yet know what awaited him ahead. He knew only one thing: he could not turn his back. And from that very first step, leaving the city's glamorous lights behind, following a child into the darkness, His life began to take a completely different direction. Lily walked very quickly, as if afraid that slowing down even for a moment would cause her fragile hope to dissolve into the white snow. Michael held the little girl's hand tightly. That hand was so small, it almost disappeared in his palm, ice cold, yet not trembling. They left the brightly lit downtown area, where large glass windows reflected luxurious lights, a place Michael had been familiar with for more than 10 years. Just a few streets later, everything gradually changed. Old buildings came into view, stained walls, chipped steps, windows with cracks in the glass. No more glowing signs, no more roaring luxury cars, only the cold wind slipping through narrow alleys and the hurried footsteps of two strangers. Michael realized something with striking clarity. Some worlds exist side by side within the same city, and they rarely ever touch. Lily stopped in front of a low-rise apartment building. Its narrow facade peels with age. "My home is here," she said softly. She pulled a key from inside her coat, tied with an old string, her tiny fingers trembling from cold and haste. Michael bent down and helped her open the door. The old door let out a dry, creaking groan. They stepped into a narrow stairwell, walls covered with peeling wallpaper, the stair carpet worn thin, threads showing through. 2 flights of stairs. Each step Michael took felt heavier than the last. The apartment was small, only a few dozen square meters, but carefully kept. On the walls were children's drawings, taped up with strips of colorful tape. A tiny Christmas tree stood in the corner of the room, decorated with handmade ornaments. There was no abundance, but there was care. And there was love. Then Michael saw her. The woman lay motionless on the floor beside an old sofa. Lily whispered. Her voice was as if afraid to wake the entire room. "That is my mom." In that moment, Michael understood something. This night was not just a chance encounter. It was a doorway opening onto the truth of lives he had never truly looked at, until now. Michael did not hesitate for even a second. He knelt beside the woman, placed 2 fingers on her neck, searching for a pulse. There was one. Very weak, but still there. He let out a short, hurried breath of relief, then pressed his hand to her forehead. Burning hot. Far too hot. "Lily," he said quickly, trying to keep his voice calm. "I need to call someone to help your mom. Will you stay here with me, okay?" The girl nodded, her eyes never leaving her mother's pale face. Michael pulled out his phone and dialed 911. For the first time in many years, his hand trembled as he held it. He gave the address, the condition, every detail, one by one, as if he were managing a crisis. Except this time, there was no contract. No amount of money could fix what was wrong. While waiting for the ambulance, Michael's gaze drifted unintentionally around the room. On the small table beside the sofa was a neatly clipped stack of papers, medical bills, each one stamped with the same red mark. Past due. On the kitchen counter, an empty pill bottle. On the wall, a calendar filled with work shifts written in red ink. Night shifts, double shifts, back-to-back shifts with no rest. Michael felt his chest grow heavy. Not because the room was cramped, but because he was beginning to understand the real price this woman had paid to raise a child. The sound of an ambulance siren echoed outside, tearing through the silence of the old apartment complex. 2 paramedics rushed in, moving quickly and efficiently. They checked her heart rate, blood pressure, and blood sugar. One of them turned and asked, "Does she have diabetes?" Michael shook his head. "I don't know, her daughter found me." The sentence sounded strange, but no one had time to question it. "Severe hypoglycemia," the paramedic said quickly. "She may not have been taking her medication regularly. Very lucky, the little girl went to get help." Lily stood close beside Michael, both hands clutching the hem of his coat. When her mother was placed on the stretcher, the girl didn't cry. She only watched silently, her eyes red yet strangely resilient. Michael bent down and draped his coat around the girl's shoulders. "You did very well," he whispered. "You saved your mom." Lily looked up at him, her voice so soft it nearly dissolved into the falling snow. "Sir, will my mom wake up?" Michael didn't answer right away. He didn't want to offer empty words. He simply placed a hand on her shoulder, looked straight into her eyes, and said the only thing he knew to be true. "I'm here now. Your mom isn't alone anymore." And in that very moment, when a stranger stood in the middle of a poor apartment holding a trembling child in his arms, Michael understood that he had crossed a line he could never step back over. From this moment on, his life no longer belonged to him alone. The hospital at midnight glowed under harsh fluorescent lights, cold in a way entirely different from the cold outside. Michael sat on a hard plastic chair in the emergency waiting room. Lily sat close beside him, both of her hands still gripping his hand, as if letting go for even a moment would cause everything to collapse again. A nurse brought the girl a small carton of milk and a few crackers. Lily ate very slowly, mechanically, her eyes never leaving the closed doors of the emergency room. "Do you have any other relatives?" Michael asked gently, as if afraid of frightening her. Lily shook her head. "Just my mom. My dad left before I was born. Mom said Dad wasn't ready to be a father." That innocent sentence made something crack inside Michael's chest. A 5-year-old child. A mother lying on the line between life and death and no one else in the world. The emergency room doors opened. A middle-aged woman stepped out, her posture weary but her eyes kind, a clipboard in her hand. "Hello," she said softly. "I'm Karen Mitchell, a social worker." She bent down to Lily's eye level. "Can you tell me what happened tonight?" Lily told her everything, each sentence broken, every small detail, from the moment her mother collapsed to putting on her coat and stepping outside to find someone to help. Karen listened for a long time. When Lily finished, she turned to Michael. "While her mother is recovering," she said slowly, "we'll need to arrange for Lily to enter temporary care." Michael froze. "What do you mean?" "She has no relatives, and you are not family." A long silence followed. "No," Michael said, his voice low but firm. Karen looked up, slightly surprised. "I'm sorry?" "I mean, this can't happen." Michael lowered his voice, but every word was resolute. "She just saved her mother in the only way she could. Don't make her go through another shock right now." Karen sighed. "I understand how you feel, but we have procedures." "Then I'll stay with her," Michael continued, almost not giving her a chance to interrupt. "Or she'll stay with me. I can't let her be taken away right now." Karen studied him for a long moment, not with suspicion, but with the look of someone who had done this job long enough to recognize when a child truly needed someone. "I'll have to make a few phone calls," she said finally. "This isn't typical." Michael nodded. Life rarely is. 2 hours later, amid phone calls, paperwork, and rare exceptions, a temporary arrangement was made. Michael would serve as Lily's temporary guardian until her mother recovered, under close supervision from social services. Karen emphasized, "It's only temporary." Lily looked up at Michael, her large eyes filled with worry. "Can I see my mom?" They were allowed into the hospital room for a few minutes. The woman in the bed was awake, weak, IV lines running into her arm. When she saw Lily, tears spilt from her eyes. "I'm sorry. I scared you," Lily said, her voice breaking. "No, no," the mother whispered. You were very brave. Lily turned and pointed at Michael. This is him. He helped us. He'll take care of me until you get better. The mother's eyes met Michael's, filled with gratitude, with shame, and with a fierce, protective love that reminded Michael of his own mother years ago. I'll keep her safe, Michael said softly. I promise. The woman took his hand, weak but steady. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know why you're doing this, but thank you. Michael didn't answer right away. He only knew that when Lily had taken his hand in the snowy night, a part of himself he had long forgotten had begun to awaken. And he understood that from this moment on, this story, it was no longer a chance act of help. It was becoming a bond from which there would be no turning back. Michael's penthouse sat on the top floor, where expansive glass windows overlooked the entire city of Chicago, sleeping quietly beneath a blanket of white snow. He had once thought this was the perfect place. Spacious, neat, completely silent. But that night, when the elevator doors closed behind them, that silence suddenly felt cold. Lily stood in the middle of the living room, her small backpack still on her shoulders. Snow was clinging to her shoes. She looked around, her eyes confused, as if she had wandered into a place that did not belong to her. Sir, she said softly, your home is so big. Michael paused. No one had ever said that to him before. Are you hungry? He asked, suddenly realizing he had no idea what a 5-year-old ate at midnight. His refrigerator held only hastily bought food, a few containers of leftovers, and things chosen for convenience, not because someone might enjoy eating them. Lily shook her head. I'm sleepy, but I don't have a bed. That simple sentence made Michael feel a sharp pain in his chest. He led her into the guest bedroom, a room that had rarely been used. A large bed, pristine white sheets, everything perfect and unfamiliar. Lily stared at the bed for a moment, then turned to Michael. This bed is too big, she said honestly. I'm scared. I'll get lost. Michael was silent for a few seconds. Then he opened the closet and took out blankets and pillows. He laid them on the floor beside the bed, arranging them into a small, warm, sheltered space, a little nest just right for a child. Lily crawled in immediately, pulling the blanket up to her chin. Here. I feel better, she whispered. Michael stood up, about to walk away. Uncle Michael? He stopped. Can you stay until I fall asleep? Lily asked, her voice small and trembling. I'm scared of new places. Michael swallowed hard. Okay, he said. I'll stay. He sat down on the floor, his back against the wall. Lily reached out and took his hand, the same way she had on the snowy sidewalk. My mom used to sing to me, she said softly. But you probably don't know that song. Michael felt his throat tighten. Long ago, his mother had sung like that too, before illness took her away, before he learned to stay silent so it wouldn't hurt anymore. I can try, he said. And in the dark room, under the faint light spilling in from the hallway, Michael began to hum quietly an old melody, not complete, but full of memory. Just a few minutes later, Lily's breathing became slow and steady. But Michael stayed there, not letting go of her hand. He looked at the child who had stepped into the snowy night to save her mother, without knowing that she had also just saved a man who had forgotten how to feel. In that moment, Michael understood something with absolute clarity. This penthouse had never truly been a home. But tonight, it was beginning to feel warm. The next morning, Michael woke up on the floor of the guest bedroom. His back is a little sore, but his mind is obvious. Lily was still asleep, curled up in the little nest of blankets and pillows she had made, her breathing slow and peaceful. A kind of peace in this penthouse had not known for many years. Michael stood up quietly. For the first time in a long while, he didn't rush to check his phone. He called his assistant. "Cancel all my meetings today," he said, "and this entire week as well." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. "Are you sure, Michael? There are several deals." "I'm sure," he interrupted, his voice calm but without hesitation. When Lily woke up, she looked around for a moment, then smiled when she saw Michael still there. "You're still here?" she asked. "Yes," he replied. "I told you I wouldn't leave." They had breakfast together, a simple, clumsy meal, yet warmer than any lavish banquet Michael had ever attended. Michael learned to ask minimal questions. "What do you like to eat? Do you have any allergies? What color is your toothbrush?" Lily answered very seriously, as if she were the adult and Michael was just a student learning how to navigate the world. The days that followed passed slowly. Michael took Lily to kindergarten. He waited outside the gate, watching her run into the classroom, then turn back to wave, smiling brightly as if she had never lived through a terrifying night. In the afternoons, he picked her up, listening as she told him tiny stories, a drawing her teacher had praised, a new friend, a doll with a broken arm. Those stories carried no economic value. They generated no profit. They expanded no empire. But they filled a space. Michael had been carrying it with him for many years. They went to the hospital every day. The mother, Elena, slowly regained color in her face. Her voice grew stronger. Her eyes looked less exhausted. The doctor said her body had endured too much. Overwork, irregular meals, inconsistent medication, not because of irresponsibility, but because she had to choose between medicine and paying the rent. Elena held Michael's hand, her voice trembling. "I tried. I just wanted my daughter to have a better life." Michael nodded. He understood that better than anyone. He told Elena about his own mother, a woman who once worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs, yet still tried to smile every night so her son wouldn't see her exhaustion. "She would be proud of you," Michael said softly. "You did everything you could, and Lily knows that." Elena turned to look at her daughter, who was sitting on the hospital bed drawing, her eyes filled with tears. Michael watched the scene and realized an elementary truth. Life doesn't change because of grand decisions. It changes when we are willing to stop, to stay, and to truly care for someone a little more each day. On the day the doctor told Elena she could be discharged, the atmosphere in the hospital room was a mix of relief and an unspoken worry no one put into words. Elena folded her clothes into the old bag she had brought from home, her movements slow, cautious, as if each motion reminded her that life outside was still waiting. And it had never been easy. Michael stood by the window watching the snow slowly melt on the sill. For the past 5 days he had been living a completely different life, taking Lily to school, cooking clumsy meals, reading stories before bedtime, arranging his time around tiny things, mealtimes, bedtime, and school hours. And strangely enough, he had never felt more fully alive. "There's something I want to say," Michael spoke up, his voice low and measured, as if he had been thinking about it for a long time. Elena stopped packing and looked up at him. A familiar caution flickered in her eyes, the caution of someone long accustomed to the idea that every good thing comes with conditions. "I have a building," Michael began. "A property I kept as an investment. The area is safe, the schools are good. There's a 3-bedroom apartment sitting vacant." Elena shook her head immediately. "No, I can't." "I'm not finished," Michael said gently, raising a hand. "Please, hear me out." He took a deep breath. I want you and Lily to move in there. No rent. Elena froze. You can't. I don't want to live off. It's not charity, Michael said slowly. And it's not handouts. He stepped a little closer. I also want to offer you a job. I need a building manager, someone to take care of the residents, coordinate maintenance, flexible hours, mostly work from home. Elena stared at him, unblinking. A job. A real job, Michael continued, with health insurance. Enough so you only have to work one job instead of 3, and enough so you never have to choose between medicine and rent again. The room fell silent. Lily looked up at her mother, then at Michael as if trying to piece 2 worlds together. Why? Elena whispered. Why are you doing all of this? Michael didn't answer right away. He thought of the snowy night, of the small hand gripping his, of the absolute trust in a child's eyes as her world was about to collapse. Because Lily saved you, he said slowly. But I think she saved me too. He looked straight at Elena. I spent 10 years building a company, but I forgot how to live like a human being. These past few days, listening to Lily talk about school, watching her draw, helping her brush her teeth, reminded me what truly matters. I'm not offering this as a favor, Michael continued. I'm offering it as a chance for all of us to have a better life. Elena was silent for a long time. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Finally, she took a deep breath. Okay, she said softly. But on one condition. Michael nodded. Go ahead. I'll pay rent, even if it's just a little. And I want the job because I deserve it, not because I'm pitiful. Michael smiled. Deal. He turned to Lily. But I should warn you, he said half-jokingly. I hear I'll have to attend a dance recital next month. Lily's eyes lit up. You have to sit in the front row. Elena laughed, laughing and crying at the same time. In that moment, there were no contracts, no signatures, no binding clauses. Just 3 people quietly stepping across a new threshold, where hope was no longer something to clutch tightly inside, but had begun to take shape. Michael sat on a folding chair in the elementary school gym, surrounded by parents holding their phones, soft bursts of laughter, and music playing slightly offbeat. On stage, children in sparkling costumes spun around in adorable chaos. Lily wore a blue dress, dancing half a beat slower, bumping lightly into the child next to her, then giggling and continuing as if it were the most normal thing in the world. When her eyes found Michael in the audience, she lifted her hand and waved as high as she could. Michael waved back. Beside him, Elena gently took his hand. Thank you, she whispered. Not just for that night, but for staying. Michael squeezed her hand softly. Thank you, he replied, for raising a child brave enough to believe that there are still good people in this world. Michael's phone vibrated in his pocket. A work email, a deal that needed an urgent decision. He looked at the screen for a second. Then I placed the phone face down. Buildings could wait. Numbers could wait. This moment could not. When the performance ended, Lily ran straight down and wrapped her arms tightly around him. Did you see me dance? Was I good? Michael bent down to her eye level. You were wonderful, he said. But what I liked most was that you didn't give up. On the drive back to their new home, a small apartment filled with light, Elena laughed. Lily retold every detail of the performance. Snow began to fall again. Lily pressed her face against the window. It's like that night, she said softly. The night I found you. Michael looked at Elena through the rearview mirror, then turned to Lily and smiled gently. No, he said. That was the night I was found. Amid a child's laughter, amid the quiet falling snow, Michael Carter finally understood. Wealth is not about having more. It is about being trusted to have someone take your hand and choosing to stay. There are tiny moments, yet powerful enough to change an entire life. If this story made you slow down for a moment, like to help kindness spread, share so someone else can be reminded, and comment to tell us, has anyone ever stayed for you? And if you believe that ordinary life stories can touch something very deep, subscribe to Deep Life Tales. Because sometimes a minimal sentence, it is powerful enough to change everything.